agree that she was in any ceremonial position. She was playing an active political role, but we don't need to quibble over those details. Hillary Clinton has been long enough in politics that she has her own independent track record as Secretary of State, as a warmonger, and as a lobbyist-in-chief for big business and for multi-billionaire interests. I don't see how we can, in any honesty, expect a woman who takes, $250,000 for every speech that she makes to Goldman Sachs, who has been a rapacious factor in the global economic crisis, as somebody who will represent the interests of ordinary people. But I think, again, we need to move away from an individualized and personalized narrative of politics to the larger context in which all of this is happening. The real problem here is not just her, but the fact that the Democratic Party and the establishment that controls it has a long track record of a systematic betrayal of the interests of working people, and not to mention war abroad. So I think that when people are worried about Trump, it's absolutely legitimate. I am horrified. I find Trump's agenda of misogyny, bigotry, hatred, and anti-immigrant hysteria absolutely stomach-turning. But if we are to actually defeat the phenomenon of Trump, then we have to look at Trump, the Trump phenomenon, not as something that happened just out of nowhere, out of thin air, but understand that the Trump phenomenon is a product of the fact that both the establishment parties, Republicans and Democrats, have moved to the right over the last several decades. Similarly, when the Tea Party and the Republican right made gains in 2010, that was not because America suddenly woke up and went right-wing. That was because millions of people were dejected and angry at Obama's corporate bailouts, and they were so disappointed and betrayed. And what's striking about that election is that it had historically the lowest voter turnout since the Second World War. What does this tell us? This tells us that there's a huge chasm between where the establishment stands and the establishment parties and ordinary Americans. And the reason Trump finds an echo is not because millions of people are racist. It's because millions of people are looking for an alternative. They're grasping for an alternative to corporate politics. So the question really is this: if we want to defeat Trump, then the bigger question is, how would we defeat Trump and avoid building an ongoing basis for the right wing? And the reason the right wing finds an echo is because the left has failed to build so far. And this year, if we don't talk about concrete left politics through the Jill Stein campaign, then we are going to leave the field open for Trump. Trump and the Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson are going to have monopoly over millions of disenchanted voters.
Rebecca Traister.
Well, I'm curious about this. So do you think that encouraging people to vote for Jill Stein is going to defeat Trump? I mean, what do you actually envision happening if the idea is more of us should be voting for Jill Stein because we're dissatisfied with Hillary Clinton?
First of all, it's a problem to look at presidential election years as something that's it's in its own box and then everything else is disconnected. That's not how it works. And in reality, everything in history points towards the fact that building mass movements on the ground are absolutely critical in order to make social change. And those mass movements actually die a sorry death as long as we don't build independent of those mass movements. The reason we succeeded in winning $15 an hour, because I and Socialist Alternative ran our campaign in defiance of the Democratic Party establishment in Seattle, and we fought for 15. Do you think the Democrats led on it or even supported it? No. They were dragged along and were forced to vote on it because the vast majority of people in Seattle built our movement on the streets and forced them for it. And that's the example of what we're talking about. And what's at stake is not whether Jill Stein is going to win or not. The fact is this: if on November 6th we have a very strong vote, 1.5 million, 2 million, 3 million votes for Jill Stein, that will make this movement that we're building sit up, ordinary people sit up, the people who are going to make change, sit up and take notice that it is possible to build an independent party of the 99%, which is the real goal we need to go towards.
Well, first of all, I want to say I agree with you.